a New York Times editor has made a decision to leave Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks and threats that were sent toward him and his writers. This is editor John Weissman. He is actually the New York Times deputy Washington editor. But Weissman cited 2 tweets that Twitter said didn't violate the rules. One called him the word that people
just
use
say
it.
it.
A kike. Okay, called him a kike. The other told him he belonged in an oven. Okay, so those are the 2 threats, or the 2 anti-Semitic things, I should say, that were thrown at him on Twitter. So he says, so I will be moving to Facebook, where at least people need to use their real names and can't hide behind fakery to spread their hate. Now I'm going to get to another statement that he made, which we're against. So before we get to that, let's just comment on this, because I think he makes a really good point. Look, Facebook doesn't allow anonymity, right? It's really hard to use a fake name. I don't even know what their system of confirming names is, but you have to have a first and last name. And, you know, you can put like a fake picture up, right? But most people have a photo. Most people use Facebook to interact with people in their real lives. And so you're much less likely to get abuse on Facebook than you are on Twitter. On Twitter, you have a bunch of eggs sending you all sorts of crazy stuff, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, right? And also, Twitter's policy on harassment is so lame, because you can report a tweet for harassment and they're like, oh, someone just cited your home address and they're on their way to come kill you. Doesn't really violate our privacy, sorry. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So now, look, sometimes they change that after the fact, but John in this case gives 2 excellent examples that the word that he cited is grossly anti-Semitic. He's absolutely right about that. Reference to putting people in the oven is about as anti-Semitic as it gets, and it's stomach churning. And if you didn't understand why his name was in the 3 parentheses, that's because neo-Nazis online, and we did a story about this very recently, Trump supporters are going around putting parentheses around Jewish reporters' names to point out, oh, this guy might be biased against Trump or right-wing positions because he's Jewish. And, you know, unsurprisingly, the neo-Nazis are horribly anti-Semitic. And when you see people start putting that in front of between your name, you're like, Jesus Christ, what has this devolved into, right?
Yeah.
So his initial concerns here are 100% valid. And Twitter's got to get better at responding to this quicker, and making the right decision quicker. You can't say, oh, somebody wants to put you in the oven. That doesn't violate our policy. I get it, there's freedom of speech, et cetera, but you also have to have a safe environment for people. And I get that it's also sometimes a tough balancing act, right? But I don't think these are that close to the line. And the general atmosphere online with those neo-Nazis has become toxic. So far we're 100% with him. If he had just left it there. But he's part of the mainstream press, so he had to put in one more comment.
All right, so the other tweet is, I will leave Twitter to the racists, the anti-Semites, the Bernie bros who attacked women reporters yesterday. Maybe Twitter will rethink. So maybe I missed something. I know about the protesters that attacked people at a Trump rally. I wrote a very strongly worded piece in Raw Story condemning that. But was there any indication that they were Bernie bros?
Not one piece of evidence. So this is what drives me crazy. He actually just ruined his whole argument by saying, hey, you should also regulate Bernie bros. But then wait a minute, now you are talking about freedom of speech. So you went from very clear line to a super blurry line against your political opponents. So in this case, he put in Bernie Sanders supporters, again, for the 88th time, the 98th time, the 108th time. Bernie Sanders is the most liberal senator in the country. In fact, the New York Times, Washington Post told us over and over again, it's not realistic. He's too liberal. Now they're telling us, no, his supporters are too sexist, which is preposterous. But much worse than that is them pretending that it was Bernie Sanders supporters who attacked Trump supporters. There's no evidence to that. If you work for the New York Times, you don't get to make stuff like that up. But now there's an extra level. Again, John and I reported on this yesterday. There's a picture of a Trump supporter who was egged. That's true. She was egged by someone who hates Trump, right? The they put the picture in a place where it appeared that they were referencing her as a reporter attacked by Bernie Sanders supporters. She's not a reporter. She was not attacked by Bernie Sanders supporters. And now here's John Weissman writing it as if it's true.
Yeah.
So that original smear job started in the Washington Post, an establishment press that has been against Bernie Sanders from day one, overwhelmingly so. Here's another establishment reporter saying, oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, also the most successful Jewish presidential candidate in American history, and he lumps him in and his supporters in with anti-Semites and Nazis. Those same neo-Nazis would also put brackets around Bernie Sanders' name. It's really sick to lump Bernie Sanders and his supporters in with those neo-Nazi Trump supporters. Don't do that. That's really grotesque.